Hello everyone. In today's episode, we'll show you how we created the scoreboard for Rusty's mini golf. So let's get straight into it. Before we update the UI, we want to make sure we have all the values we need to feed into it. One value that we'll definitely need is the number of moves taken to beat a level. I'll define a shots taken variable in the gameplay script and initialize it to 0. Then, just before hitting the ball, I'll increment it and print the value. Let's test this out. Notice how we print out the number of shots taken in the debug panel. Next, I'm going to export two variables, one called gold condition for the highest possible score and silver condition for the second highest score. I'll give gold condition a value of 1 and silver condition a value of 2. We'll consider everything else to be a bronze score. The logic for beating a level is currently located on the ball script. I'd rather have this take place in the gameplay script. So to bridge the gap, I'll define a signal and emit it in the place where we used to announce the victory. While I'm here, I'm going to fix a bug that occurs when the player tries to make a move after sinking the ball in the hole. To prevent this, I'm going to define a has1 variable on top and extend a condition for the can move method. We won't allow any more moves if the player has won already. Then, back in the win method below, I'll set has1 to true and just hide the ball instead of deleting it. Then, back in the gameplay script, I'll define and connect a handler for the new signal that'll just print some text for now. I'll run a quick test to make sure the things behave as intended. Now that the basics are working, I'll update the victory handler to print out a different message depending on our score. Let's run a test for each scenario. Winning in one shot gets us a gold medal, 2 shots for silver, and bronze for anything above. Now that we're happy with all the underlying variables, we're finally ready to extend the user interface. I'll add a label to keep track of the number of shots taken and give it some placeholder text. I'll anchor it to the top center and move it down slightly. I'll give it a custom font and font size to match the rest of the game. Next, I'll define a new method in the UI handler script that's going to update the label. Then, I'm going to call this method in the gameplay script, both when we move the ball and in the ready method so the label gets initialized correctly. Let's see this in action. The label initializes correctly to 0 and increments after every shot. That's great. Let's move on to the interesting part now. Next, I'm going to create a scoreboard based on this concept art. It displays the result in the form of stars. I know I used words like gold, silver, and bronze a moment ago, but it's the same concept. It also shows the amount of shots taken and how many shots you would have needed for the next best score. I'll begin by adding a container for the UI elements. I'm not really sure what container would work best for this situation, so I'll just arbitrarily choose aspect ratio container. I'll also add a texture rect node for the scoreboard's background and anchor it nicely to the top center. I should rename the elements for clarity before I go any further. I'll add a label that says level complete, then assign it a custom font and font size. Notice how I can only anchor it to the edges of its parent. We'll work around this pretty soon. But before that, I'll add the other labels and give them custom fonts as well. These labels will be dynamic, meaning that we'll update them using a script. To sort out this mess, I'll add a VBox container node and make it the parent of all the labels. When I anchor the container to the center, the UI instantly looks a lot less messy. I'll add an HBox container in between the labels to contain the star sprites. I'll check back on my concept art. It seems that I've named things differently. I'll rename and center the labels to match the design better. Notice how the label on top is hanging off the scoreboard. I can't move it because the parent container is in charge of positioning the elements. But what I can do, however, is cheat. I'll simply add a blank line above the text that will shift all the content down a bit. Smart. Next, I want the scoreboard to slide in and out of the scene. I can handle this with an animation player node. I'll create 2 animations, one called show and one called hide. I'll start with the show animation. I only want to animate the position over 1 second. I'll change the destination Y coordinate to 0 to make the UI slide down. Then for the hide animation, I'll just do the opposite. Next, I'll define another method in the UI script that'll take a couple of parameters. I'll start with the simple bits. I'll show the scoreboard and set the move label. I'm going to test this first before adding the rest of the logic. Back in the gameplay script, in the victory handler, I'll replace the debug statement with a call to the new method I just defined. Now let's run the scene. There it is. The scoreboard slides down smoothly after sinking the ball. If we get the highest possible score, we should not see the next star label. Let's test this out as well. And sure enough, we can't possibly beat the level in less than one move. Let's extend the logic here to cover all scenarios. So if we get a silver score, we'll print the moves required for a gold score. Then in the else clause, which is for a bronze score, we'll print the moves required for a silver score. And the final change I want to make is showing the correct amount of stars. Once again, I know I'm mixing stars and medals, but it's the same idea. Let's run a test for each scenario. Perfect, we now have a working scoreboard. Whew, that's it for today. Join us next time for the next batch of levels as well as the level selection screen. Make sure to follow us if you want to keep up with development or just for some Godot tips and tricks. Thanks for watching and see you next time.